I used to scoff at the idea of true scary stories, the kind people whisper about online or around a campfire. I was a man of logic, of science, of things that could be explained away by a faulty wire or an overactive imagination. But that was before the fog, before Highway 17, and before the man who wasn't there. It was late, well past midnight, when I left my sister's place. She lived a good 2 hours out, nestled in a quiet rural pocket of the state, and the drive home always felt like a journey through a different dimension once the city lights faded. Usually, it was a peaceful, almost meditative drive, the kind where you could just let your mind wander and the hum of the engine was your only companion. But that night was different. The fog had rolled in, thick and unyielding, a gray, soupy wall that swallowed the world whole. I'd seen fog before plenty of times, but this was something else. It wasn't just a weather phenomenon. It felt like a living entity, pressing in on the car, muffling every sound, and making the world outside the headlights utterly non-existent. The trees that lined the highway became spectral giants, their branches dissolving into the swirling mist. My high beams barely cut through it, creating a tunnel of distorted light that seemed to stretch into an infinite void. My old sedan, usually so reliable, seemed to hum with an unfamiliar tremor. The radio, which had been playing a classic rock station, suddenly dissolved into a hiss of static, then popped back on, only to cut out again. It was annoying, but I chalked it up to the rural signal and the damp air. Still, a prickle of unease started to crawl up my spine. It was the kind of feeling you get when you're alone in a vast, empty space, and you suddenly realize you're not as alone as you thought. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. The air inside the car felt heavy, almost suffocating, despite the air conditioning blasting. I tried to shake off the growing sense of dread, telling myself it was just the late hour and the oppressive fog playing tricks on my mind. But then, a new sensation joined the mix, a subtle, almost imperceptible chill that seeped into the car, a damp, earthy cold that smelled faintly of decaying leaves and stagnant water. It was the smell of the grave, or at least what I imagined it would be. My eyes strained, trying to pierce the veil of the fog. Every shadow seemed to shift, every tree trunk momentarily morphed into a hunched figure. I found myself checking my rearview mirror more often than necessary, half expecting to see something materialize in the swirling gray behind me. Of course, there was nothing, just the endless swirling mist. The road itself felt different. Usually, the familiar bumps and curves were a comfort, a map etched into my muscle memory. But tonight they felt alien, stretched, and distorted. The yellow lines on the asphalt seemed to waver, and for a terrifying moment I thought I saw them bleed, their vibrant color draining into the blacktop. I blinked, hard, and they were normal again. Just my eyes playing tricks, I told myself. Just fatigue. But the feeling persisted. It wasn't just in my head anymore. I felt a pressure, a subtle weight against the back of my seat, as if someone had gently leaned against it from the outside. I instinctively flinched, my heart hammering against my ribs. I glanced over my shoulder, but there was nothing. The back seat was empty, just as it had been all night. Yet the sensation lingered, a phantom touch that made my skin crawl. Then came the sounds, faint at first, like the whisper of wind through dry grass. But there was no wind. It sounded like a low, guttural murmur just beyond the reach of hearing, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the very air around me. It was too indistinct to make out, but it was undeniably there, a constant low thrum beneath the engine's hum. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't normal. This wasn't the fog. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles aching. My eyes darted from the road to the rearview mirror, then to the side windows, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was causing this profound sense of unease. Nothing. Just the endless, swirling gray. But the feeling of being watched intensified. A malevolent gaze fixed on me from somewhere just outside the periphery of my vision. The radio crackled back to life, but it wasn't the classic rock station. It was pure static, laced with a faint, almost subliminal sound. It sounded like a distant scream, or perhaps a keening wail, distorted and stretched thin, like something being dragged through wet earth. It lasted only a second, then dissolved back into white noise. I slammed my hand onto the radio, turning it off. The sudden silence was almost worse, amplifying the thumping of my own heart in my ears. I was nearing the stretch of Highway 17 that locals called the Blackwood Bend. It was a notorious curve, the site of several accidents over the years, some fatal. There were whispers about it, old urban legends about strange lights, phantom hitchhikers, and an inexplicable cold spot that lingered even in the height of summer. I'd always dismissed them as morbid folklore, but tonight the stories felt like premonitions. My headlights, struggling against the impenetrable fog, suddenly illuminated something. Not a deer, not an animal, a figure, a man. He just appeared. One moment, the road was empty, swallowed by the mist. The next, he was there, standing in the middle of my lane, facing away from me, his back to my oncoming car. He was tall, gaunt, dressed in what looked like dark, heavy clothes, almost like a trench coat, but it was hard to tell through the fog and the frantic jolt of adrenaline that surged through me. Time seemed to warp. My foot instinctively slammed on the brake, pushing it to the floor. The tires shrieked, a desperate protest against the sudden, violent deceleration. I yanked the wheel hard to the left, trying to swerve around him to avoid the inevitable impact. The car veered wildly, tires losing purchase on the damp asphalt. The world spun, a dizzying blur of gray and black. Then, a sickening lurch, a jarring crunch, and everything went dark. My head snapped forward, then back, and the sudden silence that followed the cacophony of screeching tires and metal was absolute. The car had slammed into the ditch on the side of the road, the engine sputtering once, twice, then dying. The headlights miraculously were still on, casting a beam into the thick, swirling fog. My body ached, a symphony of protesting muscles and bruised bones. My heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I was breathing in ragged gasps, the smell of burnt rubber and damp earth filling my nostrils. I fumbled for my seatbelt, unbuckling it, my hands shaking so violently I could barely manage the clasp. My first thought, even before checking myself for injuries, was the man I had almost hit, the man I must have hit. I looked up, my eyes scanning the road, my breath held tight in my chest. He was gone. The The spot where he had stood was empty. The fog swirled around it, undisturbed. There was no body, no sign of impact, no faint outline of a figure disappearing into the mist. Nothing. It was as if he had never been there at all. A cold dread, far more potent than the chill of the fog, seeped into my bones. My mind reeled, struggling to process what had just happened. Had I imagined him? Was it a trick of the light, a phantom born of exhaustion and the oppressive fog? But the screech of the tires, the violent swerve, the crash into the ditch, those were undeniably real. My phone. I needed to call someone. I fumbled for it, pulling it from the cup holder. My fingers trembled as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice asked. I've been in an accident, I stammered, my voice hoarse, on Highway 17, just past the Blackwood Bend. There was a man in the road. I swerved to avoid him. My car's in the ditch. A man in the road, sir? The dispatcher asked, her voice flat, devoid of surprise. Yes. He just appeared. I didn't see him until I was right on him. I think I might have, but he's gone now. I can't see him. There was a pause, a beat of silence that felt too long. Sir, can you confirm your exact location? Are you injured? I gave her the mile markers, trying to keep my voice steady. No, I don't think so. Just shaken up, but the car's stalled. All right, sir. We're dispatching an officer to your location. Stay in your vehicle. Do not approach anyone or anything outside your car. Her last words were delivered with an odd emphasis, a subtle warning that sent another shiver down my spine. The wait was interminable. The fog seemed to grow thicker, pressing against the windows, its tendrils snaking around the car, obscuring everything beyond the small circle of my headlights. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of the car's cooling metal sounded amplified, distorted, like something moving just beyond the edge of my sight. I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead, half expecting the figure to reappear, to step out of the swirling gray and walk towards me. The silence was broken only by my own ragged breathing and the distant, almost imperceptible hum of the world beyond the fog. I clutched my phone, its screen a dim beacon in the oppressive darkness. I wanted to call someone, anyone, just to hear a familiar voice, but I knew my sister would be asleep, and it was too late to bother anyone else. I was truly alone. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 20 minutes, I saw them. Blue and red lights, strobing faintly through the dense fog, growing steadily brighter. Relief washed over me, a wave so intense it almost made me weak. Help was here. A patrol car slowly emerged from the mist, its sirens silent, its lights painting the fog in an ethereal, pulsing glow. It pulled up alongside my car, not directly behind it, but parallel, about 10 feet away, its engine idling. The officer didn't get out. He just sat there, the silhouette of his head visible through the passenger side window. I rolled down my window, letting in a gust of the damp, cold air. "Officer?" I called out, my voice still a little shaky. He didn't move for a moment. Then a sigh, deep and weary, crackled over his loudspeaker, the sound distorted and amplified in the stillness of the night. "Sir," his voice boomed, devoid of urgency, almost resigned. "You're the 5th person this month to swerve for the man who was killed on this exact spot last year. Just restart your car and go home. The words hit me like a physical blow. They hung in the air, echoing in the heavy silence, more chilling than any scream or apparition. The fifth person on this exact spot, killed last year? My mind reeled. What are you talking about? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. Who was killed? I saw him. He was right there. The officer didn't reply directly. Instead, he just repeated, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Just restart your car, sir, and go home. He didn't offer to help me out of the ditch. He didn't ask if I was hurt. He didn't even seem to care that I had just been involved in an accident or that I had claimed to see a man disappear into thin air. His tone was not dismissive, but rather one of profound, weary acceptance, as if this was a routine occurrence, as if he knew. A new kind of terror settled over me, colder and deeper than anything I had felt before. It wasn't the terror of the unknown, but the terror of the known, the terror of something so profoundly disturbing that it had become mundane to the authorities. This wasn't just a ghost story, it was a recurring nightmare, an urban legend playing out on a loop on this cursed stretch of road. I tried to restart my car. I turned the key. Nothing, not even a click. The engine remained stubbornly, chillingly silent. My heart pounded against my ribs. The officer's car remained, a silent sentinel, its lights pulsing rhythmically in the fog. He was just watching me, waiting. I tried again, turning the key, holding it. The silence stretched, unbearable, and then I heard it, a faint tapping on my driver's side window. My head snapped around. Through the fog-streaked glass, a pale, indistinct face was pressed against it. Two dark, empty holes where eyes should be. A gaping, silent mouth. It was the man from the road. His features were blurred, distorted by the mist and the glass, but I knew it was him, and he was right there, inches from me, his presence radiating an unearthly cold. I screamed. A raw, guttural sound ripped from my throat. I recoiled, pressing myself against the passenger door, my eyes wide with unspeakable horror. The face lingered for a split second, then dissolved back into the swirling gray, as if it had been nothing more than a trick of the light, a phantom image. I gasped for air, my lungs burning. My hands flew to the ignition, fumbling with the key. I turned it again, desperately, blindly. This time, with a cough and a sputter, the engine roared to life. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the car into reverse, tires spinning in the mud, then into drive, tearing out of the ditch with a violent lurch. I didn't even look back at the patrol car. I just floored the accelerator, my old sedan screaming down the highway, the fog still thick around me, but now it felt like it was chasing me. I drove faster than I ever had, the speedometer needle climbing, the world outside a blur. I didn't care about speed limits or caution. I just wanted to get away from the road, away from the fog, away from the man, and away from the chilling indifference of the officer who knew exactly what was happening. I didn't stop until I reached the familiar glow of the highway lights, the first signs of the city. The fog began to thin, slowly retreating like a defeated predator. But the cold, the damp, earthy smell, and the pervasive sense of dread, they clung to me. They were in the car, in my clothes, in my very skin. I stumbled into my apartment, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in a muted gray. I locked the door, double-locked it, then leaned against it, gasping for breath, my body still trembling uncontrollably. I didn't shower. I didn't change. I just collapsed onto my couch, staring blankly at the wall. The image of that face at my window burned into my mind. For days, I couldn't shake it. The memory of the fog, the man, the officer's words. It played on an endless loop in my mind, a terrifying reel of film. I tried to rationalize it, to find a logical explanation, but there was none. My skepticism, once a shield, had been shattered. I started researching. Online, I typed in Highway 17 accidents, Blackwood Bend, man killed Highway 17, and fog road apparition. What I found was fragmented, chilling, and far more disturbing than I could have imagined. There were old local newspaper archives detailing a hit-and-run accident on Highway 17 near the Blackwood Bend exactly a year ago. A pedestrian, a drifter passing through, had been struck and killed. His identity was never fully confirmed, and the driver was never found. The body, the article said, was found partially obscured and badly disfigured, but something about the details felt incomplete, almost evasive. Then, there were the online forums, not mainstream news sites, but obscure, almost hidden corners of the internet. Forums dedicated to unexplained phenomena, to urban legends, to true scary stories that were whispered among those who sought out the darker side of reality. On one, a thread titled "The Drifter of Blackwood Road" caught my eye. Post after post from different users over several years described strikingly similar encounters. Drivers caught in a sudden, inexplicable fog on Highway 17, encountering a figure in the road, swerving, crashing only for the figure to vanish. And then, the police. Always the same dismissive, knowing response. You're not the first, just go home. Some posts spoke of a cursed stretch of road where the veil between worlds was thin. Others claimed the man wasn't a ghost, but a residual haunting, an echo of a violent death, imprinted on the very fabric of the location. A few even mentioned an internet horror aspect, suggesting that the legend itself was a kind of psychic magnet, drawing out and manifesting the fear of those who knew about it. One particular thread on a dark web forum, accessible only through a specific browser and a series of cryptic clues, was the most unsettling. It wasn't about the man, but about the fog. Users, identified only by numbers, shared experiences of the fog following them home from the bend. They described the lingering chill, the faint whispers, the shadows that danced at the edges of their vision, even in broad daylight. They spoke of a parasitic manifestation, something that had latched onto them, feeding on their fear, slowly, subtly, eroding their sanity. One post, dated just a few months prior, was particularly chilling. It read, "The officer knows. He's not trying to help you. He's just trying to get you to leave before it realizes you're still there. But once it touches you, once you see it, it knows you. And the road never truly lets go." That night, I started to notice things, small things at first. A sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature in my living room, even with the heat on full blast. The faint, earthy smell, the same one from the car, wafting through my apartment, Even though my windows were closed, shadows seemed to deepen, to move on their own when I wasn't looking directly at them. I tried to tell myself it was just my mind, still reeling from the trauma. But the whispers started, faint, indistinct, just at the edge of hearing, like the sound of dry leaves skittering across pavement, or a low, mournful sigh. They seemed to come from the corners of my rooms, from behind the curtains, from the very air itself. One night, I woke up to a distinct tapping on my bedroom window. My heart leapt into my throat. I froze, listening. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate, insistent. I forced myself to look. The window was dark, reflecting only the dim light from my alarm clock. But pressed against the glass, almost invisible against the blackness, was a faint, pale handprint. A handprint made of mist. I didn't scream this time. I couldn't. I just lay there, paralyzed by a terror so profound it felt like my soul was being crushed. The tapping continued for a few more minutes, then faded. I didn't sleep again that night. The entity from Highway 17 hadn't stayed on the road. It had attached itself to me. The officer's weary sigh, his resigned words, they weren't just a local legend. They were a warning, a truth he had seen play out countless times. He knew that once you encountered the man in the mists, once you swerved for him, you were marked. The road, or whatever malevolent force resided within it, had chosen its next victim, and it had followed me home. Now every shadow holds a potential shape. Every whisper carries a chilling message. The fog, I've come to realize, isn't just weather. It's a veil, a doorway, and sometimes it's a shroud, and I'm trapped within it, a prisoner in my own home, forever haunted by the apparition that waits just beyond the edge of my sight, and the chilling knowledge that the road never truly ends. For some of us, it just follows you home.
Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.